Another week, another fellow comic is cancelled, and this time it is Samantha Pressdee, who was to perform her Clown, Pray, Love show on Friday at the Leicester Comedy Festival. She wrote a column for the comedy industry website Chortle in which she took aim at the cowardice of contemporary comics and an ideology that aims to curtail freedom of expression and women's sex-based rights. And the article sparked uproar among activists and comedians. They told the venue that she was due to play at that they were going to snub the location as they had apparently given a platform to a bigot. As a result, she had her show cancelled. Well, Samantha the Bigot joins me now. Welcome to the show. I mean, they really went for you on this one, didn't they, Samantha? You wrote this article. Do you want to just tell us what you were saying, basically, in the article?
I was basically saying, bye-bye, comedy world. This is boring. I'm out. You're all a bunch of snobs. Steve Bennett put a tweet out saying that Samantha Pressdee is leaving the comedy industry because comedians are not saying what she wants to say on trans issues, which is not what I said.
So we should clarify, Steve Bennett is the editor of this website.
Yeah, he's the comedy critic that gave Dave Chappelle's Grammy-winning show 2 stars.
So now, you're saying you were misrepresented in terms of what you had to say?
Yeah, I feel like he twisted my words, and I did write to him and say, hey, can you put my original headline in, which was, I'm leaving comedy to find a husband with balls.
So what is it about the comedy industry? I mean, you've been performing stand-up for a long time, and you say in the article that comedians aren't really taking risks anymore, I suppose, or they're being wimps, is I think the word you described.
They're wimps, they're so boring. I feel like anybody that's interesting or has a voice immediately gets labelled as racist, transphobic, or a Nazi, and they're pushed out. So this last Edinburgh Fringe, which was the first Fringe post-pandemic proper, Jerry Sadowitz got cancelled, and he's well respected. You know, he does this kind of subversive, quite hard-hitting material, but it's art, it's art. We're grown-ups, we know that it's art. We know that that is not a literal Nazi on the stage, it's art. But he got cancelled, and pretty much no one, probably you guys did, but pretty much no one at the Edinburgh Fringe took a stand. I did, but I'm just a little comic. I've never aimed for popularity or TV. I'm just like, right, I want to make shows. I just need a little audience. I want to build a little fan base, and then I can do what I like to do. But they all want that. They all want to be on live at the Apollo, and they will zip their mouths to not get any adverse attention, which is exactly what a comedian is supposed to do. Dave Chappelle said that it's a comedian's duty to speak recklessly, and if we can't speak recklessly, who can? So it's not just a freedom of expression in the arts, it's a democracy thing. If I can't have an opinion that women should be able to have same-sex spaces without them being labelled a TERF, it's not just that art is being censored, it's that democracy is at risk. It's dangerous.
I mean, I wonder what annoyed them more about your article. Was it the fact that you were saying, well, they should have stood up for Jerry Sadowitz, which, of course, they should, and they failed to do so out of cowardice, probably cowardice, or is it that you made the point that women ought to have their own spaces away from men and that this has been interpreted as transphobia?
I don't know. It could have just also been that I said that they weren't very sexy.
That might be more likely, actually. Yeah.
I've been doing comedy 9 years, and I've only ever slept with one comedian, just one comedian. And he now wears a dress, which is a massive turn-off.
And that's the point that you made in the article. So there's all sorts of ways in which you've annoyed people. But actually, so what if you wrote an article annoying people? Isn't annoying people part of our job sometimes?
Yeah, that's why I got into comedy. I saw people like Bill Hicks and George Carlin, and I'm like, wow, they're telling the truth. Comedy it's a platform for the truth, and I have truth tattooed on my wrist. It's one of my highest values, along with freedom, which I guess goes hand in hand. But we don't seem to have comedians like, you got Dave Chappelle, but he's being gaslit by the media. His show is not transphobic, the show that he did. It's a beautiful show about his trans woman friend, and he was actually helping her with her comedy career, and he says you can make fun of anyone if you see them as an equal. It's not about punching up or down, you're punching straight. And I agree with that, but it seems nobody else does.
It's interesting. So you had a show So you were saying in this article, you were saying goodbye to comedy. You had this final show you were going to do at the Leicester Comedy Festival. Then some other comedians contacted the venue and said, well, we're booked at the same venue. We can't have that.
On a different night.
On a different night, because they felt unsafe.
They were unsafe.
I suppose your very presence tainted the venue or something.
Yeah.
But what's worse about... I mean, the complaint is just quite funny in of itself, but then they capitulated. The venue said, OK, we're cancelling your show. Your show got cancelled.
Yeah, I was on a week after them, but apparently my views, my opinions, my personal opinions was so scary that they couldn't even be in the same venue if I'm going to arrive a whole week later.
So this is absolutely
it's just
fascinating.
Bonkers.
Okay, well,
bonkers.
I want to bring in my other panellists here because I've got two comedians here, very experienced. Now, Scott Kapoor, I'm going to come to you first. What do you make of Samantha's case here? What do you make of a venue that pulls an event because of a couple of complaints in this way?
Yeah, no, it's not great. Well, when I played the Melbourne Comedy Festival in 2001 or 2 or something, I can't remember, I was high, but when I did it, I had a TV appearance where I did my act as I'd been hired, and it was so offensive that my show was pulled off the board, that the woman, Susan Proven, who managed the festival, told me in a radio appearance that I should just leave the country.
Wow.
The Catholic Church got on my show, and it was fantastic, and said, and actually I was right on before Jerry Satter was in the same venue, which I considered an honor. I'd look backstage and I'd see him sitting on his props about ready to go on because he does magic. He's fantastic. And he got some protests there too. And in those days, it was seen as negative, but of course now protest sells you out.
Are you surprised, though, that Jerry Sadowitz... I mean, as Samantha says, people didn't stick up for Jerry Sadowitz when his show got pulled.
Well, you know, I think comedians, especially in the Edinburgh Fringe, they're so wrapped up in their own world. Maybe somebody... He's only there for 2 nights. Maybe some comedians didn't even know it was happening.
Oh,
maybe,
it was everywhere.
Well,
everybody knew. We were all talking about. We were all whispering about it, just making sure that nobody could hear us.
Of course, and
for us too.
And I wasn't there, but I wrote stuff on Facebook and supported Jerry. I think he's a genius. But you know, there's so much money at stake there. That's part of the problem at Edinburgh. You said it yourself earlier.
Yeah.
It costs 10 grand before you even get there.
Yeah.
And I think these people are thinking, I can't blow that money. I'm here. It's a trade fair now. It's no longer an arts festival. Let's be honest. Your perception of what the Edinburgh Festival is probably different from other people's. They're there to move forward. They're there to be TV presenters. They're not really interested in the comedy circuit at all, really. It's just a step on a ladder to something else.
But isn't that kind of sad, Samantha, the idea that people are in it just for the money and not for the vocation of comedy?
For the popularity, yeah. At an arts festival, the biggest arts festival in the world, people are compromising their integrity for popularity and money.
They want to be liked, which is a different... I agree with you. Comedians, when I started in the 1890s, they didn't care about being liked. They just wanted to do their shtick. But now it feels as though some of the younger people, they want... Yeah.
Can I bring in Francis Foster at this point? Francis, do you have any thoughts about Samantha's case in particular?
Well, I think this is what happens, Samantha, when you are actually honest about what you think in the comedy industry. The comedy industry has these orthodox views. And if you stray to the left or to the right on these orthodox views, you are going to see yourself in real problems. And what you did, and what I couldn't believe you did, is you walked up to the third rail, which is a trans debate, and literally went, Yeah. And then what happened is the inevitable explosion, because nobody can admit anymore that willies and vaginas exist.
But isn't that interesting that you chose to publish this article in Chortle, but that is going into the lion's den, because the comedy industry is very has its orthodoxies now, and they're very much perpetuated by that website in particular. And so by publishing it there, you knew surely that the backlash would be intense.
I did expect a backlash, and I was fine with that, you know, when they were all calling me transphobic and you know, just really nasty. A lot of comedians that have never actually come to my shows were telling me, you're not funny. That's fine. I can handle that. That's fair game, because I called them all self-censoring wimps. Fair, right?
So they get
But to cancel my show...
Yeah, that's the
I've
difference.
invested thousands. I've been to clown school in the pandemic. It cost me probably over 10 grand, and my show is about going to theatre school as a working-class girl from the fourth most deprived town in England, finally getting my dream to go to theatre school, Goliath I went to. That's what my show is about. and then finally getting my dream, and then they're like, oh, you can't sit with us. Like, oh.
So this is the difference, isn't it? I mean, what you're saying, Scott, about what people perceive the Edinburgh Fringe to be about and about how it's there as a trade fair, and I think you're right about that. I think that is what it is at the moment. But to intervene and to actually damage someone else's career because you don't like their opinion, that is surely beyond the pale.
It's only a matter of time, really. It'll happen to other people, not just you, sadly.
Yeah.
And I also think that the comedy industry should be a bit more careful. They're trying to promote what they say is diversity. They're trying to promote, especially female comedians on stage. And then here they are, some of these people in Leicester, telling you can't go on stage. It's contradictory, isn't it? And actually, it's not just the industry. It is the audience sometimes, too. They get a bit anxious when you bring stuff up around the trans issue, so that means I do 20 more minutes on it. And and I've had clubs say, are you going to, here in this town, are you going to close with that bit tomorrow night, doing a 3-night run? I'm like, oh, yeah, and then I do 5 more minutes on that subject because it makes the club anxious too. But that's because I've been dropped on my head and I hate 30 figures.
Yes, you do like the audience to be anxious.
Oh, well,
Scott.
I want them to get their money's worth. If they're not nervous by the end of the show, then what's the point of any of this? It's not a seminar. I don't care what they think. There's a buffer. We'll never be friends. I want them to enjoy themselves.
What do you think about this, Samantha? Can you do you have any recourse at this point to get your show back on, or is that it? Is that decision being made? Can you challenge it in any way?
Well, Leicester Comedy Festival haven't actually made public comment. It's my promoter that's pulled me furthest from the sea, funded by the Arts Council. So they've pulled me. Leicester haven't said anything. I mean, if it was me running a venue in Leicester, I'd be like, come and perform at my venue. But at this late stage, with 5 days to go, I don't think there'll be any spaces for me to perform in other venues.
But it's fascinating, isn't it, that a venue can't just say, well, look, this performer has a certain opinion. The audience get to decide. If you're offended, then don't buy a ticket,
And my show isn't even about that, and they know that, and they said that in the email that they sent to me. They're like, look, we know that your show is not about the things that you were writing about in the article, but still, we don't want to be associated with you, like it's catching or something.
Well, the staff might not feel safe.
Well, there's that, isn't there?
Get to worry about this.
Francis, what do you think of that? Like this idea of safety within comedy, does it really have a place?
No, it has no place.
Yeah.
But you see, this is the problem with comedy at the moment, is that because the industry is collapsing in on itself, because the money's no longer there, because the opportunities are no longer there, there are people fighting it out for fewer and fewer opportunities. And as a result of that, the industry has become more cutthroat. So people will do whatever it takes in order to get to that next level.
Well, that's what Scott was saying about the money, and the need to please.
No, but it's even worse, because before, the comedy industry had money in it. You could actually ascend, get on TV and build a career for yourself. Even now, when you go on TV, there is no career to be had because nobody watches TV anymore, because it's been hollowed out from the inside by this diversity agenda. And this is the thing. This is the thing that nobody talks about with diversity. People talk about diversity. What the comedy industry wants and what they desire is for people of all genders, ages and races to be represented as long as they have the same opinion. Yeah. And it's actually homophobic and it's racist.
But that was interesting, Samantha, that this website felt the need to put an addendum onto your article to say, to distance itself from you, to say, well, we're only publishing it for freedom of speech. We don't agree with her. What a weird thing to have to do. Yeah, and I said in the opinion piece that I wrote that these evangelists of identity politics, they don't actually stand for the marginalised groups that they purport to defend. And an Asian comedian reached out to me yesterday privately. A lot of people have reached out privately because they will go after people's livelihoods. They will. And said that the same guy that's cancelled you tried to cancel me. He called me a racist. I'm Asian. So that's incoherent, obviously. Yeah. But were you surprised, Francis, at the fact that Chortle put an addendum to the article? I've never seen them do that, by the way.
No, they've never done that.
Never before.
No, it doesn't surprise me because it's another way for him to virtue signal and for him to make himself look good and also not ostracise his fellow peers. Because the thing that nobody talks about in this is that the reason everyone's so quiet is they know that the moment they stray from the line, they're done and they're finished. But
this is the point, is when you have sort of comedy critics and people within the industry saying, actually, we're going to make a statement to distance ourselves from this view, it does narrow the way in which the views that will be acceptable.
It's a big responsibility being the diverse comic on the bill. I know how that feels. And for years, there were no openly gay comics on the circuit. So I'd be the one that, was the reason the show was tricky or offbeat. I was the offbeat guy. And they'd close with me in case I tanked, in case I did terribly, so that, you know, people at least got a decent show. That happens when they send me in the Middle East all the time. They do that. They close with me because they're afraid of what's going to happen. The thing is, it's homophobic, like you said, and racist to think I'm diverse. I'm a white middle-class guy from the suburbs. And in fact, my act sounds very similar to the other 3 white middle-class guys that have been on before me.
But class doesn't count, Scott.
That's the thing.
It's about identity
It's ridiculous,
politics.
but identity is not determined, diversity is not determined by skin color or gender. You're right. It's homophobic and racist, and it's really tricky for a club to assume an audience feels the same.
So what's the future for the industry? I mean, if you're saying, Samantha, that you're not going to continue because of the narrowness of what is permitted in terms of opinion in particular, what's going to happen now? Is it going to keep going down this road, or are comedians going to start being a little bit braver about what they say and think?
I feel if you want to be truly free as a comic, you've just got to build your own audience and your own platforms and come on GB News.
Well, on that fantastic note, thank you.